Excited to be here, guys. So I am Ben Peck. I am one of the co-founders of Front. Hold it down, guys. Hold it down. Okay. So I'm excited to be here with these wonderful people here, and I'm excited to dig deeper in a more conversational way into product and talk about a lot of the things that we've been hearing about from our other speakers, and I'm excited to get into it. So first, to get started, I'm going to allow these guys to kind of give themselves an intro and give some more context into where they're coming from. So let's start with Zach here.
Yeah, great. Zach Sivertson. I work at Symantec, and I manage a group of products that deals with stopping targeted or advanced malware attacks from getting into government and large financial institutions. So I've been in product management most of my career, started in entrepreneurship, and then transitioned into product management.
Hi, I'm Christi Wruck. Hello? Did I screw it up?
You're on.
You go.
Joseph, go for it.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. So Joseph Draschil. I'm currently the VP of Product and UX at Draschil, which is it was founded in the beginning of 2013, and now I was the third employee, and now we're about 80 employees, to give you guys some context. Our company does software for the network marketing and party plan industry. So if you're thinking Unique, if you've seen that around, Zango, Monavi, Nu Skin, those are the types of companies that we serve. So it's B2B to C, meaning we have large clients, but then they have hundreds of thousands of distributors and customers that we're servicing. And it's been a fun ride.
Cool. So Christy, let's go back to you.
Hello?
No.
What? Dang it.
Okay, Michelle.
All right. Am I on? Sorry, Christy. Just you.
Hold it.
I'm Michelle Barber. I am a user experience designer. I work at Family Search, where we help people discover their stories, discover their families. I work on a team of about 20 user experience designers, and I'm a manager of about 5 excellent designers myself.
Third time's the charm, Christy.
Hello?
You're back.
Yeah?
Yeah, baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You're on.
Okay, so they can hear you. Yeah, hey.
Christy's back.
Go AV!
I'm Christi Wruck. I work at Instructure. I work on the oldest product there, Canvas, and that is a learning management system. We have about 2,000 customers, but at each one of those institutions, obviously, there's more than one user. So we have a lot of users. And we have about 1,000 employees at Instructure at this point. It's grown really, really fast. I think that's about it.
They're one of our sponsors, by the way, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah. And a great place to work.
Way to
Just
run.
a shout out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. So obviously, we have a lot of people in the audience in the tech industry, I would assume, and that value product management. And but within each company, how product management is done is different. And so we want to dig into that. And the first question that I have for you guys is, how would you describe the role of a PM today? Michelle, you want to try to take that?
I'll take that, especially from a designer's perspective. I think PM today is kind of a hot topic because product management is a fun place to be. You own a product, you own its life cycle, you also own the experience that works with it. And if you do a good job at it, you'll incorporate everybody. It should incorporate your engineering team, your design team, and really the pride of the product comes down to you. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, and I'll add something there. I don't know product managers in the crowd, if you've ever talked to someone and people ask what you do for a living, and you say, oh, I'm a product manager, and someone goes, oh, you're a project manager. And you go, no, product manager. And part of that comes from the inexperience, or people don't realize what a product manager is. But part of it, in my opinion, comes from companies recently, I feel, have been lowering the role of a product manager and delegating them to own individual small features within a product versus owning product strategy across an entire product. right? To me, a product manager should own and be the CEO of their product, right? They should understand their product margins, their position in the market, how much market share they own, who they should possibly acquire to gain market share. And if they don't understand some of these topics, I think a product manager is diminishing the value that they can have within the organization. As a product manager, if you're not making strategic decisions around increasing market share and growing your product, I think you're not delivering the value that you could as a product manager.
Well, I think that depends on the size of the company too, because at Instructure with 1,000 employees, we actually have a product strategy department whose whole job is to go do that type of research. It doesn't mean that the product people are ill-informed or unaware of those data points. I think a good product manager can take that information along with other information from other avenues and put together a good product or a good piece of a product. And I've found actually that when you have a team of product managers that are all working on the same product, when those people work together and are less like individual CEOs over their area, it moves the whole product forward so much more. Having someone that works on one piece of the product, they tend to get a little too narrow and be too focused on their specific area and champion their specific part of the market they want to tackle. Where if you have 5 people on a product and they're coming together to decide how to tackle each solution and it's not siloed, I think that really elevates the product and the research that can happen around it.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because nobody's wrong, and yet everybody's wrong, depending on where you're at in terms of your business stage, in terms of the market you're doing. I know that Zach is heavy B2B, right, with a lot of products that have often smaller user interface requirements than, for example, Canvas at Instructure, which is, you're thinking about the UI is almost the product itself, not with the user experience, right? But a product manager, it's hard to say that one product manager definition to rule them all, because a CEO, when he's starting, the founder, right, him and 3 other guys, a hacker, a designer, and whatever the other one is.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Designers are the only important people.
Yeah, that's right. When you're starting
you're
out,
good.
the CEO is the product manager, and at some point he has to hire the first guy to take over a product from him, and it's usually this like divorce of where he's like ripping and the baby's ripping in half, and Solomon didn't win.
Wow.
That was quite the graphic description.
But probably accurate.
But I do think there's some guiding principles. I think Zach was not alluring to some of them, alluding to some of them. I wish he would allure to more people. And that is that product managers need to be finding and validating. I'm actually quoting somebody. If it sounds cool, it's not from me. Finding and validating pervasive and urgent user problems, then leading a team to discover the right solutions for it, and then ultimately making sure that gets out to the market so that people so it has the business impact. But to kind of parrot what Zach was saying earlier, if you're not focused, maybe you're not a product strategist, maybe you're in a 1,000-person organization and you're tasked with a particular user persona or a group of features or some section of the product experience. If you are not focusing still on user problems and the business impact that solving those problems will drive, then you need to make some changes.
And you're not truly managing your product. You're not managing the experience of it. And I think that's the thing that we have in common from a big corporation to startup, small, everywhere in between. Product managers should know the ins and outs of that product, whether they're owning the whole thing, like Zach was saying, or a little piece of it, like Christi was saying. They own the experience, and hopefully they're working together with the business, with design, with everything. But ultimately, they know that product inside and out. It's their baby that hopefully doesn't have a traumatic experience like yours.
One thing I want to say, many of you may be at a company who's young and may have a co-founder, may have a group of executives that have been with the company from the beginning, and they feel like they own product strategy completely, right? And you're just being thrown requirements over the fence, and you become a project manager, right? And if you're at a company like that who's not allowing you to at least take part in the strategic conversations, then I think you need to ask yourself, where can I go to gain that experience? I'm not saying you have to own the strategy at that company, but you at least need to have a seat at the table. And I think you do that by getting a couple wins under your belt, right? If you start having strategic conversations and mentioning things in the long run that lead to wins, you'll earn your seat at that table. But if you don't have it now, then possibly look at a company that will give you that opportunity.
Yeah, if I can add something really quick to that. A metaphor we use a lot is we're not order takers. We're not waiters and waitresses. As product managers, as user experience designers, as anyone on a product experience team, we're not order takers. The project manager gathered the requirements. What do you want done? Okay, well, what do you want done? What do you want done? Great, I'll write it all down. Hold on a second, the chef's working. We are doctors, right? What's the pain? What's the problem? We're going to discover, we're going to figure out what that is, and then we're going to come up with a solution, and then we're going to prescribe it to you, and then we're not just going to a one-off transactional relationship. We're going to figure out, you're going to do a checkup on a regular basis, right? You're validating that your solution actually had the outcome that you wanted. But the more that you find yourself as a product manager or user experience designer taking orders from someone, the less you're going to be doing, I believe, your real job, which is focusing on outcome.
Well, and I think being the voice of the user. I mean, that's what I feel like I find myself doing so often is, it's not just what's the best thing. You can't just look at what's the best thing for the company without thinking about what's the best thing for your users. I mean, I think you kind of touched on that. You have to have a balance there, and that has to be an input. And in so many conversations with engineers or with designers, I find myself bringing them back to, but this is the problem that the customer is telling us that they have. This is the problem that we need to solve. And of course, we want to do that in a strategic way that will make the company profitable or successful. But I think you need both. I think you need both product strategy and always remember to be the voice of the user, because that's whether that's just the problem that they have or well, not the exact solution, like you said. But I think that's, I don't know, I feel like that's my biggest responsibility in my company, is to remind people that this is what our customers want.
And if you have a product manager who's not doing that, who's giving orders like that, then you have an opportunity for a conversation of, really, what are we serving? Who are we benefiting with these orders that you have? And it's a great opportunity to show, hey, we could go out and we could learn from this customer, we could learn their pain, and we could diagnose it. We probably won't get it right, but at least we'll test it and move on from there every single time and keep iterating on it. A lot of product managers are so worried about delivering and moving on. It's that iterating, making improvements that gets lost.
I loved what Teresa was talking about yesterday, Teresa Torres.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She was talking about going to visit your customers every week.
Every week, absolutely.
Always. I was like, I can't believe there's product people out there who aren't focused on that.
It seems like the industry's really coming around that way, though. All the product managers I work with now are totally on board. They realize, oh yeah, we've got to be paired up in this. We have the IDEO mentality that a lot of us have kind of adapted to, where you have, your user experience manager, your development manager, PM. That trio can be your make or break team, because you should be out there with users, seeing the problems. You feel the pain yourselves, and then you're committed to actually fixing the pain and working on it together. Well,
so digging deeper into that, like, how do you know whether you're building the right product? Like, how do you know that is, like, you can get inputs from everywhere, but how do you really know which ones to listen to, which ones to not? Like, how do you know?
Is the question, how do you know what the inputs are the right inputs, or how do you know if you've built the right, or you're going to build the right product?
Yeah, how do you know you've built the right thing, whether it's a feature or a product? I mean, from your standpoint, you built you're managing, what, a $50 million product right now, right? How did you know you were building that right product?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you have to spend a lot of time understanding first your financial metrics. And there's some products where you can get feedback quicker than others. Some is instant, and some takes time. But building the right product first starts with gaining the right input. But on a weekly basis, I consistently track certain KPIs to understand success for new features, for new products that we've launched. We understand the sales of the product. We understand margin, discount levels, our market share, is it decreasing or increasing? And some of that takes quarters to understand, but your sales indicators, you know on a daily basis, right? First thing I do when I log in the morning is I look at my pipeline, my big deals coming up, who the customers are, get on the phone with them, chat about their buying decision process. And by being able to look at those metrics on a daily basis, it gives me some indicator of our success.
Yeah, so and that varies heavily between a business-to-business organization versus not. I mean, Family Searches is consumer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, coming from a nonprofit world, it's very different, obviously. But I work with a front-end guy right now that's awesome, and he keeps reminding me, because I keep saying, we should build these awesome features for the users, because we're out, we're seeing them, and we're testing with them. We have these great, fabulous ideas, and those should keep harnessing. But he keeps saying, but remember, Michelle, we've got to pay the bills, which in a nonprofit is a little bit different. But at the same time, your organization values something, whatever it is, if it's growth, if it's users, if it's seats, if it's whatever it is, you've got to pay those bills. You've got to keep your lights on, provide that, while also showing value from these new features that we're pushing. And I think if you get those coupled together, you have a team that's on board providing both. That's where you can innovate, but also still keep the business growing and making sure you're keyed in with those, and that's the indicator that you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the part of the phrase you used was the right product, right? So when you say product, already what that is you're talking about the solution that you've actually built with the team and that you've delivered to the market. And to define whether a solution was successful or not, you actually have to say, what problem were we trying to solve? Because a solution over here that solves this problem is going to be a horrible solution if the problem's over here. And so, you got to understand what the problem was that you're trying to solve. And then you have to ask the question, was that even the right problem to tackle? There's all sorts of products out there where people said, we're going to solve this problem, and it turned out that nobody cared about it. So I guess to say whether something is the right product or not, you have to go all the way back out to the original outcome, so outcome, problem, and then solution. But you have to start with the outcome every time. What was the outcome that we're wanting to achieve? And both Michelle and Zach were sort of alluding to business outcomes. So what's going to affect the financial, what's going to be the financial impact for this product, or if on a smaller level for this feature that we're adding. If it doesn't really change a user metric that's important to the company, that ultimately improves lifetime value or churn, how long a customer's going to stay on there, or how many new customers are coming on because you've now solved this problem that you weren't solving before, then you probably weren't solving for the outcome that the business wanted. And it's, of course, like to Christi's point, it's not just business outcome, it's user outcome. And solving for user outcomes drives that business impact.
To that point, that's where usually the fighting starts, right? Is deciding on what that problem is.
That's where it gets dicey.
Taking all the inputs, like how do you, so strategy is hard, process is hard, people are hard. Like, how do you deal with people?
People are worse.
Let's go there.
Don't get into product management if you don't like people.
We can talk all day about
not gonna work.
The ideal process or the ideal way of going about things, but how do you deal with people? Like, there's people here, so how do you deal? How do you deal with people?
Humor. I can't imagine. I don't know if other product people don't employ humor. I don't know how it would work, but I feel like if you, I mean, it's personal relationships. I mean, I have relationships with the engineers I work with the designers I work with QA that I work with, and they're not like forced fun relationships. They're like actual human relationships. And I think if you can have genuine interest in the people that you're working with and the users you're serving, you're going to be successful. I mean, it's empathy. We've talked about empathy. I mean, that's, if you have that, you're going to, or can learn how to employ it. I don't know how that would work, but if you have some measure of empathy, you're going to have an easier time working with people. I mean, it's sort of a life question to me. Like,
that's true. It is a life question.
This is our lives, essentially.
Yeah, one comment I'll make specifically with product management, if you're in a role where you own your product, other people want to feel a part of the input process. And so key in product management to getting along with everybody is to not be closed off in that process and to involve as many people as you can and to hear their arguments. At the end of the day, the product management team has to make tough calls and you can't say yes to everything. But if people understand your input and your thinking into the roadmap, you'll gain a much better relationship with them. I've seen product managers over the years who will decide on a priority and they won't communicate the thinking behind the priority. And I think that causes relationships to become closed. And so the more time you can spend communicating your reasoning behind that priority, I think the more successful you'll be in your relationships with others.
Yeah, that goes back to what Josh and Kendall were saying earlier, like relationships matter more than process, right? And figuring out a good balance between the two is good. So, Michelle, I think you could speak to some of that, coming from the design side of having the PM UX relationship. I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say, also knowing the work that you're about and being so passionate about that will only help your situation. Hopefully you work somewhere that you care about the product that you're delivering and you're united in that. If nothing else, that will be your segue into making these great relationships. Hey, we're working on this, we're united in this end result. Maybe we have different ideas how we're gonna get there, but we, at the end of the day, should be serving this user. That should be what we're excited about. We love this product so much and we're excited to make it the best it can. Let's work together. Then you become the relationships that you need and you build those together. Hopefully you have enough trust in each other, you can go from there.
And I think the same goes between product managers that you work with as well. Like, if you all are in support of each other and are respectful of each other and trust each other, you're gonna lift up the whole product. And
Christi, I keep wanting to disagree with you to really
I know.
get this heated here.
Right into debate. Throw a chair, come on.
Start fighting. It's a fight club.
So
We'll get there.
if you want a real answer, then
Whoa!
Nice.
well, I think people, in terms of people management, they need to know who's in charge and they need to know why you're in charge because you've got the answers. You're in the position. I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, wait, I can disagree. Finally.
What? No.
That's actually my favorite thing when you're interviewing a product person. They're like, well, I really like being the boss. I'm like,
You're like, good, interview over, okay.
yeah, super.
So people management, though, Zach was talking about stakeholders, right? Well, sometimes they're executives, they're your boss. Sometimes often they're actual customers, clients, people that are paying. Sometimes they're sales people, marketing. Everybody has what they want, and the funnel goes through the product team. But then there's also the people management of the people that are on your team. And though you're not their boss, you're not their CEO, that makes it even harder because you need to be building trust, and you need to be extending trust with them trusting you, and you being able to extend that trust to them. So I believe a product management job is really hard, and part of it is because you have to be so good at people skills and bringing a team together, and knowing when to step back and give autonomy and vision, and letting people take ownership, and yet when to step in and say this is the vision that we need to have based on the business objectives and the user being the voice of the user and the timelines that we're trying to hit.
Another thing I want to mention on personal relationships, if you surround yourself with people who are passionate about the product, I think relationships go a lot better. Often we'll go into a room to argue and hash out priority of a product release or features. And at the end of the day, everyone in that room is passionate about the product, and they know that the conversations that we have or the hard decisions we have to make around product priority for a roadmap, at the end of the day, we're all passionate about the product and we want the best thing for it. And that leads to better relationships if you can set an understanding like, hey, we may go into this and have different views on the priority, but at the end of the day, we're going to try our best to make a decision that's best for the company and best for our users and our product. And just setting those ground rules up front. Don't take it personal, but we're passionate about what we do and we want to build the best products.
But
Yeah.
to that point, I have to ask though, what happens when you go in that room with the idea of, we're going to come out kumbaya, also dedicate on the thing, and it doesn't work. Like, you come out and you're more divided than you were before, because I've been there, we've all been there. What do we do in that case?
That's a really good question. I believe you have to have a high-performing team. Kendall and Josh were talking about this earlier. To have a high-performing team, you need to have it needs to be a safe area. You need to be able to healthily engage in conflict. Now, I'm not saying the word contention. I'm talking conflict, which is debate, right? Talking together about the hard issues and being willing to. If you're not willing to go there, then you're not willing to. Then everybody's just going to sit back. A decision will get made, and they go, okay, great. Well, I'm just going to be passive-aggressive about this. I'm going to undermine this. I don't think this is the right thing to do. If you don't
That's the best strategy, right? That's passive
It's
aggressiveness.
worked for me. If you don't give them a chance to be heard, Zach was sort of talking about this earlier. If they don't have their voice heard and feel like other people understood their position, there's no way that they're going to be able to buy in, to commit to any decision. However, if you have felt heard, and then whoever is the decider, because there always is a decider, makes the decision that's different than what you said, well, great. Mature team members can disagree and commit. They say, I've had my piece. You understood me. I know that you heard me. You see it differently. My job now is to support you and to support the team, because that's what good team members do.
Well, I was going to say, I think that goes back to relationships. I think if everyone going into that room has tried to, through empathy, try and gain some understanding of where people are coming from, and you have good relationships with the people in that room who are trying to make those decisions, you don't end up walking out of there like, well, that jerk who works all by themselves in the corner and never talks to anybody won, and why the hell did they get what they wanted? It's like, if everybody's there and everybody's sort of working on trying to solve the same problems, I mean, ultimately, isn't that what we're all trying to solve the same problems? How do we get the best product? How do we solve whatever problems for whatever your product is?
Can I ask you a question? Can you teach someone empathy, though? Like, say something somebody doesn't want to do it. CEOs, maybe. Or
well, you're
somebody
completely
else.
right. They don't even have to have a C in front of their title. There's a lot of people that could influence that just aren't on board. They're just
is that
not
teachable? Like, can you help someone? I mean, that's really
There's some
like
great YouTube
management.
videos.
Okay. I think the real question is it forcible, right? Can you make somebody learn that rather than can you teach it? You can absolutely teach empathy if the person is open, humble, and willing to learn. If they're not, then they're not going to learn.
Right.
going into it with, hey, I'm here to teach you empathy is probably like set up for failure. Because I'm so awesome. But really what you should be hoping for is that through the combined influence of people who they care about each other, they care about the product, they care about the user, hopefully the influence will wear off. And hopefully you go in with enough humility of, I may be the one that needs to change. I may be the one that's not seeing something else. As hard as that is, because the designer is always right. So as long as we get that from the beginning.
Well, and if you have great leadership who can bring the team together and help people see that, hey, you know what, this is like, and if you can make a great argument, this is going to get us the most money for the least amount of investment. That's a pretty easy decision to make.
And Ben, the last thing I was going to say is the champion. Like you were asking, how do you go in there and you campaign and you share this, goes around with it. Hopefully you have someone that's your champion, whether it's a manager, whether it's another designer, whether it's a product manager. Hopefully you have someone that can go in and say, I'm with you. We worked on this together. We'll approach this together, because having even just one person there that understands your standpoint can, all of a sudden you're like walking around a little strong. You're like, oh yeah, I got this, because it gives you that confidence to look past yourself.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to dig a little bit deeper here. I'm gonna go as little deep as I can. So what is the #1 challenge you face in your role as a product person, building product manager, product design?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and this isn't maybe the #1 challenge, but it is a big challenge, is me learning to. I used to be the only product manager when the company had barely started, and now I'm not. In fact, I'm not even a product manager. I just work with the team.
What? Off the stage?
Yeah, I'm sorry. But I work with all the product
manager
now. One of my biggest challenges is putting in place the system and culture and processes that is going to allow the product teams to be participating in this, in much of the interactions that we've been talking about here, and holding myself back from jumping in and making the decisions that I want to, because it's not like I have any less opinion now than I did before when I was able to directly...
He's more opinionated.
That's right. If anything, they're just boiling up, they're ready to explode.
But don't you feel like your experience before where you were knee-deep in the product is what's influencing you now? Like, would you be as influential if you hadn't actually worked in the product and known it inside and out?
No way.
So how do we do that? How do we hire somebody to come in and hopefully have that same influence that you have? You had experience. You've been with the product for so long. You raised it up.
Yeah, well, I think there's value for sure that I was the product manager previously, and when they have questions, I can give a lot of insight from interactions with users and with my experience with the product. But honestly, I believe that most of my value that I'm offering now is not on the product decisions that they say, hey, you have a little bit more insight, and we could talk to a bunch of other users, or we could ask you because you've already talked to all these users. It's more saying, what's the principle behind what we're trying to do here, guys? When they say, what's more important, this one or this one? And I say, I can tell you that, but like Ellen Chisa said earlier, I'm not going to be here every day to tell you that. Maybe I am, but I shouldn't tell you every day because this is yours. So what's the principle? Can we talk about rules and rubrics and guidelines that you guys can be using to fish yourself? And they're fantastic at it. When you give people, I'm stealing this from Daniel Pink, purpose and autonomy, they have to work on the mastery themselves, but a purpose and then the ability to go do it themselves, ownership and authority, then they bloom like flowers. It's awesome.
Zach, what do you think?
The hardest thing I'm dealing with is once you get consensus on priority and a roadmap, say for the next 3 months, it's defending that roadmap. Right? We have about 20,000 people at the company I work for, and you have all different angles, right? You have executives, you have sales, you have engineers, and all the people have different opinions on what the priority should be. And so someone coming in at halftime and expecting to change that roadmap. And so something that I've done recently that's been one of the best tools for me as a product manager is I track all the epics and what their priority is, and I debate it with all of the key stakeholders. Sometimes it can take a few days, and then once we agree to it, if someone tries to come in and sideline the priority, we pull up that list. One example, my boss, he may be here or not, but not sure. He
said he was here, so
okay.
Just say it.
Yeah, as an example, he called me and he had
I might have a job for you afterwards.
He called me and had a priority that was extremely high around Amazon and AWS. And he had a hot customer that wanted this particular feature, right? And so rather than me saying, okay, we'll do that, we pulled up the list of epics and said, which one is the casualty of this priority, right? And then he sat there and went, oh, wait a minute, now I understand the trade-offs. It's a different conversation, right? And so when people come to me, I just point at the list and I say, all right, I like your priority, but which one is less important?
Who's going to die, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And some have died and some do because we have the wrong priority and something pops up. But it's a great way to get executives and people to understand the cost of them trying to change your priority. Right? When sales calls me, they want to win this big deal, I point at the list. Oh, yeah, those other things are pretty important. So it's been really helpful. But key to success in doing that is making sure that you debate the priority beforehand and get some general consensus on it, and then maintain that list.
A quick follow-on to that is, roadmap is a really loaded word, right? Sometimes it means a list of opportunities that you're looking to move into discovery. Sometimes it means a backlog of stuff that you're actually just going to be building in whatever order it comes. And often it's used to say, these features, these already defined solution features, even if they haven't gone through discovery, someone just says, this is the feature we need to build, without even going through the problem or the outcome that they're trying to solve for. And then tying a date to that and saying, in the sand, not in the sand, right, in the stone, chipping in, this will launch on this date, and this will launch on this date, and let's announce it to sales, and we'll put it on our website. And so that date-driven roadmaps kills the flexibility that, sure, you've built the priority, but what happens, like when Zach said, when something comes along that actually does change the priority, and it's not you needing to defend it, you say, that's information we didn't have yesterday, or when we built this, and it needs to change because it's going to have the greater business impact, and user problem solving. But you don't. But the trump card is the dates that you already committed to these other ones. So it doesn't matter how important it is, what the opportunity value is of the thing to build. If you've got a pegged date roadmap out there that you have to march towards, then you don't have time to switch. You can't be agile. And then as you're going through it, if you need more time in discovery and you don't have it, too bad. Move on to building it, and then you don't have time to tweak it after it's out there because you're on to the next thing and you're already late for that one. So flexibility so that you can keep the user needs properly prioritized, and which you're going to find out, by the way, from talking to the users, right, themselves. Not necessarily saying, what do you want here, but just what's your biggest pain points and business impact.
Yeah. So, Christi, what's your number one
Hardest thing?
challenge that
Challenge?
you're facing?
Well, we're actually getting away from the date-driven product roadmap, which is awesome. So in that way, I don't have a lot of challenges that I used to have, but I'm still experiencing some of the old date-driven stuff that we're trying to drive to because that's what's been publicized. And that is really painful. It can be really painful because sometimes in order to make that date, you have to make sacrifices in either what the right thing to do is in order to make that date, or you have to V2 it, which people can get real sick of having a V1 that's like, like they'd rather have the whole thing, I think. But if you get away from the dates, which is where we're moving, I think it gives you more freedom to release better stuff. The funny thing is people, your customers will keep saying, but when is it going to be done? And it's difficult to say, I don't know. It's a hard conversation to have because at Instructure we have a really close relationships with our customers, and it makes it really hard to say sometime soon. They want dates. Trust me, they want dates.
Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of time here left. I have one last question. So in the most succinct way that you possibly can, what would you tell your younger self now, knowing what you know from years of experience? Try to keep it cheap. I know it's like hard. It's a hard question, but go ahead.
I would say you're an idiot. But know that you don't know anything, and learn from the smartest people you can as much as you can, and just keep learning. And whenever you think you know it, remember that you're an idiot, and keep learning. Because if you ever are the one that you think you have all the answers, that's when you've stopped learning.
He points at me.
Okay, so Michelle, your turn.
I would actually, this will probably go back to what you're saying, I would tell my younger self to have confidence because I was so convinced I didn't know anything and I had so much to learn, which I did, that a lot of times I would second guess myself. Like I remember I worked on a team with fabulous designers, and so I would like download their Photoshop files and I would like scrutinize every decision, like, oh, they're so much smarter. I wonder why they put this pixel there and this pixel there. At the end of the day, I should have just been like, well, I'll learn from it, and hey, I can make a good choice and I can defend it myself. And I don't have all the answers, but I'll do my very best to get there. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Perfect. Zach, go ahead.
I probably would have said to buy Apple stock and be a doctor. Probably earlier on, I would have, like I said earlier, tried to be more involved in product strategy rather than waiting later in life. I found the most value that I could deliver to a company was in being involved in product strategy versus my new product functionality and feature set. So the faster you can broaden out, I think you'll provide more value and you'll see your career grow more quickly.
Cool. Okay, Christi, 16 seconds.
I'm
just kidding.
No, it's okay. I would say ask more questions. Don't be so afraid of looking stupid, because I think if you ask questions That's the only way to actually get better at what you're doing. And when you try and look like you know what you're doing, you usually look like an idiot. And that's worse than just asking questions. So.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. That's it.